Big Marblehead, Season 1, Episode 7. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 7 of Revolutionary War Rarities, the Sons of the American Revolution podcast. My name is Jim Griffith.
And my name is Joe Maples.
Jim, did you know that there was one individual who's responsible for saving the American Revolution numerous times? In addition, he was the owner of the first United States naval vessel. Yep, the first boat to ever be used in a combat situation by the United States government was not owned by the government, but was privateered by this individual. Sadly, history has not provided much education or name recognition of this individual.
Strangely enough, one source that was studied as we prepared for this podcast referred to this gentleman as a member of the codfish aristocracy, a self-made man who started off as a cordwainer or leather shoemaker. He became a rum trader and a ship owner.
It turns out that this individual's name is Colonel John Glover. He was born in Salem, Massachusetts, the home of the Salem witch trials.
John Glover is credited with raising a regiment of about 500 sailors and fishermen for the purpose of assisting with the American Revolution. Interestingly, the regiment included some Spanish, some Native American, some Jewish, and some African Americans. They ultimately form the 14th Continental Regiment.
Okay, Jim Maples, we know that we're talking about John Glover, and we know some of what he did. There is much, much more to this guy. Are you ready for trivia time?
Yes, sir. Let's go.
All right. Can you tell me the nickname of the 14th Continental Regiment?
Yes, Jim. They were called the Marblehead Mariners. By the time John Glover raised his regiment of fishermen and sailors, he was a resident of Marblehead, Massachusetts. Today, Marblehead, Massachusetts has around 20,500 residents and is frequently referred to as the birthplace of the American Navy and Marine Corps aviation.
Very good. So we mentioned earlier that John Glover was the owner of the first U.S. naval vessel. Can you tell us more about that vessel?
American history frequently states that the original United States naval vessel was a schooner. This was one of John Glover's boats that he used in his numerous businesses, which he had been quite successful in. He had named the boat Hannah after his wife, and therefore it became the Hannah once it was privateered by George Washington.
So what were the two situations? What were the two situations where John Glover saved the Revolution?
Well, Jim, we all know about the Battle of Long Island, also known as the Battle of Brooklyn, which was a terrible defeat for the Colonials and a massive victory for the British. What you may not realize is that the Colonials were surrounded with the East River at their back, which means that the bulk of the remaining colonial troops were very close to capture. Had those troops been captured, the American Revolution will have ended about a month and a half after declaring independence. But John Glover and his Marblehead Mariners were able to evacuate all remaining troops across the river, thereby saving about 9,000 soldiers from death, capture, and defeat. This was the first situation where he saved the Revolution.
Okay, so what was the second and more well-known engagement where the Marblehead Mariners played a significant role?
This is the famous one, Jim. When Washington and his troops crossed the Delaware River on December 25th, 1776, to attach the Hessians at Trenton, the Marblehead Mariners were the ones who got the boats across the treacherous, icy river, and without the Marbleheads, Trenton would have never been attacked. And remember, without that victory, all would have more than likely been lost. That attack was necessary because many of the troops of the Continental Army at that time were approaching the end of their enlistments. Washington was desperate for a victory of some sort. He was desperate for a way to get his troops to re-enlist. The victory at Trenton accomplished those objectives and kept the Revolution going.
And so it goes. When studying American history, in particular the American Revolution, it is amazing when you realize the number of times that the war was practically over and the Americans on the verge of defeat. There were so many precarious situations where, had only one of them turned out differently, all would have been lost. But with each of those times, our forefathers were able to pull victory from the absolute jaws of defeat. This included situations where the leather shoemaker named John Glover saved a continent, where men who were very adept at shipping saved a revolution, and where a group of guys named the Marbleheaders wrote themselves into American history. Without the dreamers accomplishing the seemingly impossible, the United States of America would not exist today. As a free American who gets to enjoy liberty with every passing day, I am thankful to those who gave everything to create this great nation. So thank you, Marbleheaders. Although you and John Glover and Hannah are not everyday historical figures in American society would not exist without you. You are the reason we exist today, and we salute you. I'm Jim Griffith.
And I'm Jim Maples, and we thank you for joining us today. And please be sure to join us for the next episode of Revolutionary War Rarities Podcast. This has been a production of the National Society Sons of the American Revolution, www.sar.org.